Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and my unboxing and card making of Simon Says Stamps December 2023 card kit. For those that aren't aware, I work with Simon Says Stamp and they send these kits to me. I do not have to do these unboxing videos. You know, there's no obligation, anything like that, but they're fun. So I like to do them. And it gives me ideas. And we'll go through the kit and then I will splice this together with the footage of me making whatever it is I decide to make with it. And like I always do, I will have links in the description box below the video. I will link to the kit, to the subscription option, because there is the option to just order the kit one-off as is, or you can do the subscription option. All that info will be with the link. Or there's everything, or mostly everything, generally available separately. So I'll have links to all that, along with links to whatever it is I end up adding to make whatever I make. So let's switch the camera down, and we'll just stick me back in there. And like the broken record that I am, I still haven't figured out how to do this in one click. It's on the to-do list. Anyway, here is the kit in a nutshell. So, yeah, this kit came out, it comes out on the 14th of each month. Generally takes a little longer to get to me because I'm in Canada, and that's okay. And I still get it a little bit earlier than the general public, because I do get comments about that, wondering why I get them early. Like I said, they send them to me, so I get them a little bit earlier than the regular subscribers and all that. So first off, we got, ooh, a cherry sucker. Favorite. You always get candy. I love it. I have a sweet tooth. So this is the Making Spirits Bright monthly card kit. So we have a glue stick. Simon brand glue stick. Honestly, I don't really use their glue sticks. It's not my preferred method of adhesion, but I keep them because I give them to my kids for their crafts. It works. So, but if you like glue sticks, it is a good glue stick. I used to use glue sticks back in the day, but now I prefer liquid glue. So you get one of those. There is, we'll get to there's a couple of fabulous envelopes. There's a lot of things in here. Okay. There's a 3D embossing folder. This is the Verdant Ornaments embossing folder. This is really pretty. I've got ideas. This is really pretty. I love, and you guys seen, I've done how many videos on Simon's, using Simon's embossing folders because they have a bajillion of them. It's pretty. I just, yeah. So I got embossing folder. You get a fancy holiday cheer wafer die, so the word and the outline, and yeah, this is a good size too. Like these are like A2 envelopes, so just to give you an idea of like the size of it. Yes, love. So you get the fancy holiday cheer wafer die, the stamp set. This is gorgeous. This is the Making Spirits Bright stamp set, so a 6x8 stamp set. Art and snowflakes. There was a wafer die. I can't remember the name of it offhand. It's a larger one, but it's this design. It's this snowflake, and it's not like an outline. I'll get to the coordinating die set in a second. But Simon Reese, that was with their last release or the one before. I can't remember. I'll link to it, and if I have the time when I'm editing, I'll pop up a little image of it too. But that's the first thing I thought of when I looked at this. I was like, ooh, I have a snowflake wafer die that can match. So yeah, love the sentiments. This is just a really pretty set. And yes, there is a coordinating wafer die set for this. It's separate, depending on whether someone wants to get it or not. I will have a link to it in the description box below. I just want to stamp and heat emboss these snowflakes. This tree is really pretty too. Ooh, this stamped and heat embossing gold. Yeah. So got stamp set. Then we've got a pack of the Tim Holtz Idea-ology. These are the layer frames. I like these. I do like these. They are fun. And I do. I hoard Tim Holtz Idea-ology stuff. I can't help it. It's just, it's pretty. So yeah, these actually they're stitched. You got the little threads hanging, which you can totally trim off if that's not your thing, you know. But they're just so pretty. So you could have like, you know, snowflake. You could make it a shaker. You know, the frames are definitely wide enough. You could make these into shakers. Like, yeah, you get just a variety of these. Love them. So you get a pack of those. There's a pack of these adhesive pearls. So you just peel and stick. Love. There's the Tim Holtz Idea-ology sticker book. And these, just all sorts of phrases. They scan these from like vintage books and stuff. Like, love it. Love it. So yeah, whole pack of these, which I'm kind of glad because I'm pretty sure like I said, I hoard Idea-ology stuff, and I'm pretty sure I have this in my box of hoarded Christmas goodies that I ordered, and I like when they get included in kits because if I've got an extra pack, I'm more likely to use them. So yeah, and like these little like pattern strips, I really like these. Oh, the colors are perfect too. Love it. Love it. So you get that. And then the pattern paper, this is Simple Stories, Simple Vintage Dear Santa patterned paper. Double-sided. Just fun. It goes so well with those like frames and everything too. Like, it's perfection. Love it. Absolutely. Oh. See? Like, these papers are good. Yeah, and see, I don't create like vintage, really. That's not my style, but man, there is something about vintage Christmas that just hits the right spot, you know? I really like that pattern. These papers are really nice. Like, these are very nice. I really like them. Like, yeah. Yeah. See, again, it's just, this is what I'm talking about. Got a little snowflake I got. So many ideas. Oh my goodness. Oh, again, I'll just keep like grabbing the exact same frame every time. We could use other frames too, but like, really. Oh, I love it. I love it. These papers are gorgeous. They're so gorgeous. I just, too perfect. So you get pattern papers. You get a couple of envelopes. Got a metallic one and a Schoolhouse Red envelope. These are self-adhesive, which I do love. I love self-adhesive envelopes. It just makes life easier. You get a half sheet of Simon's holographic. Do they just call it holographic red? Yes, holographic red. It's trying not to blind you guys with the reflection because it is very, very reflective. It's holographic. It's trippy. Love it. And then you get Midnight Green, one of my favorites. It looks almost black on camera. It is just deep, deep green. So, I use this one a lot. And same with Schoolhouse Red, another favorite of mine. Love it. And Ivory. So very, very like traditional Christmas colors, which love that too. For me, that's almost a step out. I usually always do non-traditional, and then, but every few videos or something, I'll do, you know, traditional Christmas colors. I love it. Especially, and vintage. I honestly have no idea where I'm going to begin. I've got like frames and papers and holographic and stickers and pearls and stamps and the dies, the embossing powder. I love it. I love it. I'm going to have to grab that Snowflake wafer dry. And my other one, like, again, if you're not aware, I don't even know how many years it's been going on. That was some of the first purchases I made from Simon Says Stamp way back in the day. Way back. were some of their Snowflake wafer dies because I didn't have anything like them. And now I've been working with Simon for years and years and years now. But so many Snowflake wafer dies. And like I always say, can you have too many? No, they're all unique. Anyway, if you keep watching, I will show you guys whatever it is I decide to make. I've got too many ideas and not enough time. But like I said, I'll splice it all together, and the links to everything will be directly below the video. So just keep watching and I will show you guys what I made. So I ended up making 6 cards. I'm only going to show the process for 3 of them. That was my intent, like original intention. And then afterwards, when the cameras were off and, you know, I was doing my own thing, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And I made 3 more using just the pattern papers and kind of following the same formula. So I'll just talk you all through it. So my first card, I trimmed down that one pattern paper with that like poinsettia and snowflake little cluster. Just love. And after I trimmed it down, I used my little Tim Holtz thread cutter paper distressor tool to rough up all the edges of that pattern paper. You guys have been seeing me do it for however long now in recent videos. Going back to some old school techniques, you know, I really like the roughed up edges. So I then adhered it. This is actually where that glue stick would have been perfectly handy, but old habits. I've been using liquid glue for so many years now. That's what I reach for. But when I adhered that pattern paper, you saw I kept the glue more towards the centers because I sewed with my sewing machine just around the perimeter. I didn't bother filming that because you guys can't see it because I filmed straight down. You see nothing but the top of the machine. But I just used some green thread and just sewed a messy little border around the pattern paper and like sewed it to the cardstock. So that's why I kept the glue towards like the center, because you don't want glue gumming up your needle and whatnot in your sewing machine. So after I'd sewed it, added some gold splatter, as is tradition with my Kansai Tombi Starry colors. I had just added water to the little gold pan, swirled it up real good, used my fan brush, added the splatter, let that dry. Then I die cut that Schoolhouse Red cardstock, as well as that red holographic cardstock with the fancy Holiday Cheer wafer die. This ends up like featuring on every single card I made. I loves it. I loves it so much. I love sentiments like this that are just like, I call them beefy, you know, they're good size. They take up a chunk of the card, and they're like the focal point. So that was the focal point on all my cards, was that wafer die. And then for this one, I added a companion little sentiment and used the stamp set for that. So I've got just a piece of the midnight green cardstock. I used my anti-static powder tool on it. I lined the sentiment up just onto an acrylic block, and I'm going to stamp that with clear embossing ink onto the cardstock. And then I'm going to coat this with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder, tap off the excess, melt this with my heat tool. Once this has had a few seconds to cool, I wipe off the excess anti-static powder with a cloth, and then I just die cut this with one of my sentiment label wafer dies so that I don't have to fiddle with my paper trimmer. It's just a convenience thing. So I die cut the sentiment, and then I'm going to do this with all the cards. I'm going to use bits and pieces of the pattern papers to add to the insides of my cards. Now, I mention this a lot, especially, again, in recent years. I hoard pattern paper. I can't help it. I'll get it, I'll flip through it, and I won't use it. I hoard it. I pet it. It's my precious. But when I do use it, I like doing things like this. And this is what I used to do a lot back in the day, is using just, pieces of it on the insides of my cards just to kind of tie everything together. And I'm going to do this for all of these cards. So like, as I get making and get in the groove and start chopping into those papers, there's always bits left over. And I save all those because that's what I end up using more often than not on the insides of my cards. So all of my card bases are going to be just the ivory cardstock. So obviously I pulled some more from my stash, and they're all going to be top folding A2 note cards. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I adhered the little bits of pattern paper. The one I just flipped over, used a little, snippet of it because it was just that pretty green pattern on the other side. I stamped another sentiment from the stamp set that comes with a kit. And for that, I had used the Rainbow Splash Scarlet ink. It's a nice deep red. And then that finished the inside. So now I can adhere the, the splatters dry, everything. I left the threads hanging off from sewing that border. You can always pull them to the back. I've shown that in other videos too. You can pull it to the back, tape them in place. I'll say this, I've mentioned this in other videos, but you don't need anything special when sewing on cards. I just use the machine as I got it. Mine is a Janome New Home, it's called. And you don't need special needles, special threads, special anything. I just loaded it up, kept the needle in the machine, and went to town. The only thing you need to keep in mind is if you ever plan on, or if you are a fabric sewer, you will be aware of this, using your machine on cardstock, it will dull your needle. Now, am I concerned about that? No. It's gonna just be whatever. And my machine is, if it ever touches fabric, I'll be shocked. I don't sew. I don't. That is not where my skill set is. Maybe someday. I would love to. I would love to learn how to sew proper and to like quilt. Oh, love. Anyway. My machine's most likely never going to touch fabric though, so I'm not worried about the needle dulling. I'm just mentioning that so people are aware. But yeah, you don't need anything special. I have zero skills, you guys. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's why I do wonky borders, because I'm lucky if I can sew in a straight line. So you just do it intentionally messy. It's perfect. So anywho, adhered all the things that I showed. That sentiment strip, I just use scraps of the cardstock to adhere that. To bump it up a little bit, give it, a little bit more dimension. And that was card number 1. Card number 2, I've got the frame and I trimmed down that one Santa paper from the pack, and I was like, oh, this needs to be a shaker. It does. So I pulled some acetate from my stash and I just trimmed this piece down to just slightly bigger than that opening in the little frame, that pack of frames. And once I used this one, I was like, oh, I can use these. I don't need the hoard though. And besides, I think I have at least one more full pack in the stash I mentioned in the intro. Anyway, we won't talk about that, okay? I'm a professional curator. Anyway, I'm using some red line adhesive. I like good strong adhesive when I'm dealing with acetate. Score tape also works, terrific tape, that sort of a thing. Red line works. I try to avoid using liquid adhesive unless I absolutely have to use it, because liquid adhesive and acetate is it's just a mess waiting to happen is my biggest thing. And really liquid adhesives don't fully hold. They will, but I still don't 100% trust it. This kind of adhesive works amazing. So I put the red line adhesive along the back of that frame, press the acetate in to create my little window. And then I'm going to just use some waffle flower thin foam tape. This foam tape comes in 2 different thicknesses. This is the thinner one. If you want your shaker to have more space, or if your shaker bits are like chunkier, etc., you want to use like regulation thickness of foam tape, like the thicker stuff. This, I'm planning on using just confetti, like thin shimmery confetti, which I'll show and I'll have a link to. And I don't want my cards to be super bulky, so I'm using this thinner stuff. But again, this won't give you as much shaker action as using thicker foam tape, or doubling up on foam tape, etc. It's just personal preference. So I lined the perimeter with the foam tape, and then I'm going to put some along the bottom here too, because this frame has that kind of bottom margin, whatever you want to call it. So just to keep everything, on the same level. Then I peel off the backing from all the foam tape. You want to do this before you add your little shaker bits, because as you're pulling up the foam tape, sometimes, you're shaking the frame, whether it's this like pre-made frame or cardstock, whatever, and you don't want it bouncing around and everything's sticking to the foam tape. So I peeled off all the backing off everything, and then I'm just using some Trinity Stamps Rock Candy confetti. Yeah, Rock Candy confetti. I'd ordered another pack of this because it's one of my kind of go-tos, and it's just perfect for stuff like this because it's just neutral. Although some like red shaker bits and some traditional Christmas colors like red or green, some gold. Oh, that would look amazing too. Like these cards are already done. Everything is like sealed up. The shakers are done. I can't peel them apart. But now I'm just like, man, I should have dived through my stash and found some reds and greens and golds and, just had a party. But this is very pretty too. It just gives a little extra something. So I put that in there. I press that pattern paper onto the back of the foam tape there, and that sealed everything in. So now I've got my little shaker element, and then I'm just going to put some craft tacky glue on the back of just the pattern paper, because there's also the foam tape, and adhere that to more of the pattern paper that I had trimmed down, and you guys saw me rough it up with that paper distresser tool as well. And then I had die cut the sentiment from that holographic red cardstock. The outline I die cut from the midnight green cardstock. And then I'm just going to adhere that right on top of the frame. And that just kind of covers up that little sort of sentiment portion that was part of the pattern paper that I just didn't want as, you know, the focus. And then I adhered one of the Tim Holtz Christmas sentiment stickers. And same thing. Once I finally peeled one off and used it, I was like, oh, I can use these. You know, I have another pack in my stash. So I use a bunch of them on all the rest of the cards. Because again, once you start, it's easier. It's kind of like when I talk about like when you get your stamp stained. You know, once you use a tool and you stain something or you break it or whatever, you know, you break it in, now you can use it. It's good. You don't got to worry about it. You know, you open that pack of pattern paper and just pull off a sheet, cut it up, you know. And again, I'm saying all this. Am I going to follow my own advice? Probably not. The next like 5 packs pattern paper I get, I'm probably never going to touch. I'm aware of it. I'm okay with it. But yeah, if you really, you know, if it really bothers you, just pull off a sheet, cut it in half, and then go on about your day. And, you know, you'll feel much better about using it. So I adhered more of those little papers on the inside of the card, one of the little Christmas stickers for my sentiment, and then adhered the card front with the shaker element to the card base, and that's card number 2. And that one I actually make 2 more of with other papers, and you'll see at the end of the video. So then for my third card, I took one of the green pattern papers and that tree from the stamp set, and I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool on the pattern paper, and then I'm going to ink up that tree with the clear embossing ink, stamp that onto the pattern paper, and then I'm going to coat this with the gold embossing powder. So sprinkle that on, tap off the excess, and then I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. Once this is melted, I'll wipe off that excess anti-static powder, and then I'm going to use my trimmer to trim this down. And I noticed this in editing. I didn't even think about it when I was using it. I keep flipping up the guide, like the trimmer guide there. You can see me, like I keep lifting it. You don't need to do that with this trimmer. That's like the whole point of this Tim Holtz trimmer. But 20 years of habit are hard to break with a trimmer I've only had for like a week now, something. I haven't had this for very long because I bought it and I just got it in the mail, yeah, maybe a week ago. So I'm probably going to still, just out of habit, lift that ruler guide. It is what it is, but I'm fine with it. Anyway, trimmed down the pattern paper, flipped over the other pattern paper and trimmed it, roughed up some edges. I'm going to adhere this to some more of that midnight green cardstock. I picked out another frame from that Idea-ology frame pack to frame my little heat embossed Christmas tree. So I adhered the pattern paper. I'm going to rough up this panel as well, because it's another one of those things. Once you start, you can't stop. It's just fun. It just is. You can also use the edge of your scissors to rough up cardstock. I've shown that in videos. You technically can also use your fingernail. I don't recommend using your fingernail. It's going to put stress on your fingernail and cause lifting, and you don't want that. It's not fun. So edges of scissors work great, or this little tool is fabulous. So then to adhere my little pattern paper Christmas tree, I just put a little thin line of glue around the edge and then just stuck that right to the Idea-ology frame. And then I'm going to stick that onto my card base. And again, I had die cut. You can see a little pile there. I just started going to town on the fancy holiday cheer die cut, and die cut a bunch, because by this point I was like, yeah, I'm making a bunch of cards, because I just couldn't stop. I was having fun. So I am going to adhere another die cut sentiment to this card front, and for the eyes, just like I've been doing, like I always do, when I'm die cutting, and if there's little bits of certain wafer dies, I just stick them in one of my little trays, and that way it just keeps everything contained in one spot, so I don't knock them over, knock them onto the floor, they catch on my clothes, you know, my elbows get in the way of everything. So I just adhere them separately. It's easier that way. It's a little dabs of glue, my little embellishment wand, press it into place, good to go. So I'm also going to add some of these little stickers to this as well. And then same thing. Top folding, ivory, note card, A2 sized, more little bits of the pattern paper. You know, it gets, as you're cutting them down for other things, you just have all these random little pieces and it just works. So roughed up the edges of the one pattern paper, adhere that to the inside of the card. I flipped over the other piece because it had that gorgeous green pattern on the back of it. So I just flip that over, adhere that over top. Still gives me plenty of room too for writing to the recipient. And then I'll add another one of those little Christmas sentiment strips to finish off the inside as well. So get that one adhered into place. And then I'm going to adhere this card front to the card base, and that finished off the third card. So once this was done, this is when I stopped filming because the other ones are kind of redundant, the same sort of process. I'm going to make 2 more shaker cards, which I'm going to show. And then the third one was just kind of a mishmash of bits of the pattern paper in the frames. So here's card number 1 with the splatter and the sewed border and the heat embossed little sentiment. And then on the inside, I'd stamped the sentiment, added the bits of pattern paper. And then card number 2 is the shaker card, which you can't go wrong with a good little shaker card. And yeah, I love that holographic, that red holographic cardstock. I've been hoarding that too, so I'm glad it was in the kit because I used up all of it. I used up that entire piece for all these cards. I was able to get 6 word die cuts from that piece of cardstock. So card number 3 with the gold heat embossed tree in the frame. And then these next 2 cards are also shakers. So I did the same thing. The pattern paper, the acetate, the little bit of foam tape, the same rock candy confetti on the inside. Just simple. Same with this one. Confetti, pattern paper, die cut sentiment, just random bits of the pattern papers. I used the ephemera stickers for the sentiments on the inside, bits of the pattern paper, etc. And this last one was just kind of a mishmash of the pattern papers. I did a bit of stitching on the one side there, some zigzag stitch with that green thread, added one of the little frames as well. And that finished off all of these cards. So like I mentioned in the intro, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. In my blog post, I'll have all these photos. I'll have picture links to everything. It's a lot easier to navigate, but I will also have my supply list in the description box below the video with links to everything. If you are interested, you can just check that out below. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting, letting those robot overlords know you guys like what you're seeing. It genuinely helps. It does. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.